My girlfriend wanted a free vacation with her ex, what I discovered when I said no. When my girlfriend told me her ex-boyfriend had offered to take her on an all-expenses-paid vacation to apologize for his past behavior, I felt something break inside me, a fracture in the foundation of trust I thought we'd been building for 9 months. The look on her face, as she said it, excitement barely masked by a thin veneer of concern, told me everything I needed to know about where her priorities lay. Allie and I had been together for just over 9 months, that sweet spot in a relationship where the honeymoon phase is giving way to something deeper, more substantial. We'd recently started talking about moving in together, had met each other's families, and were planning a road trip for our 1-year anniversary. I thought we were solid, aligned in our vision for the future. Now I wasn't so sure. Her ex, Ryan, had appeared on the periphery of our relationship about a month ago. I'd known about him. Of course, the guy she'd dated for 2 years before breaking up 6 months prior to meeting me. From what Allie had told me, their relationship had ended badly. He'd been controlling, dismissive of her career ambitions, and emotionally unavailable. She'd finally reached her breaking point after he'd forgotten her birthday for the 2nd year in a row. When he first reached out to her, I hadn't been thrilled, but I understood that people could change and that closure sometimes comes in unexpected forms. I told myself I wasn't the jealous type, that trusting Allie meant trusting her judgment about maintaining appropriate boundaries. They'd only seen each other in group settings, drinks with mutual friends, a birthday party for someone they both knew, and she'd always been transparent about these interactions. I'd been uncomfortable but determined not to be controlling. Now that restraint felt like naivety. "He wants to take me to Greece," she said, her eyes bright with an excitement she was clearly trying to downplay. "All expenses paid. He says it's to make up for how he treated me when we were together." We were sitting on my couch, Netflix paused mid-show, her legs still draped across my lap. The casual intimacy of our position suddenly felt absurd given the bombshell she'd just dropped. "Greece," I repeated, trying to keep my voice neutral while my mind raced. "Just the two of you?" She nodded, a slight flush creeping up her neck. "He's already booked the tickets. For next month." She hurried to add, "We'd have separate rooms, of course. And I already told him there's absolutely nothing happening between us." "And what did he say to that?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Allie hesitated, confirming my suspicions. "He said he understands completely, that this is just about making amends." "Do you believe that?" I pressed, watching her face carefully. Another pause. "Not entirely," she admitted. "I think he probably does want to see if there's still something there. But," she continued quickly, "that doesn't mean anything would happen. And Ryan feels really guilty about how he treated me. Plus," her voice took on an almost pleading quality, "it's a free vacation to Greece, Max. I've always wanted to go to Santorini." The room felt suddenly airless, as if all the oxygen had been sucked out in an instant. My girlfriend was seriously considering going on a romantic getaway with her ex-boyfriend, a man she knew was trying to win her back, and she expected me to be okay with it because the price was right. I struggled to find words as the implications settled over me like a heavy blanket, smothering the confidence I'd had in our relationship just minutes before. The night after Allie's announcement, I lay awake staring at my ceiling, torn between the voice in my head screaming, "This is completely unacceptable," and the creeping fear that expressing this would make me the controlling boyfriend she'd finally escaped in Ryan. The moonlight cast strange shadows across my bedroom as I replayed our conversation over and over, searching for a reaction that wouldn't make me the villain but also wouldn't make me a doormat. "I need time to think about this," I told her after several moments of stunned silence. She'd nodded, kissed me on the cheek, and left my apartment with a gentle, "Take all the time you need," that somehow felt more dismissive than understanding. Now, hours later, conflicting emotions battled within me like opposing armies, neither gaining clear ground. Part of me understood the allure of a free vacation, especially to somewhere as breathtaking as Greece. Allie worked hard at her teaching job, budgeted carefully, and rarely indulged in luxuries. We'd often talked about traveling together someday when we'd saved enough. The practical side of me could see how tempting Ryan's offer must be, all the splendor without the financial burden. But the larger, louder part of me was hung up on the glaringly obvious. This wasn't an innocent gesture of atonement. No ex-boyfriend drops thousands of dollars on a Mediterranean getaway unless he's hoping for reconciliation. The separate rooms promise was laughably a paper-thin assurance that would dissolve faster than a sugar cube in hot coffee once they were there. Strolling through whitewashed villages at sunset, drinking wine on balconies overlooking the Aegean Sea, I picked up my phone and started typing a message to Allie, then deleted it. Typed again, deleted again. How do you express that something hurts you without sounding like you're trying to control someone else's choices? The fact that she hadn't immediately declined the offer spoke volumes about her priorities, sir, at least her ability to compartmentalize ethics when the price was right. The next morning, bleary-eyed from lack of sleep, I called her. Can we meet for coffee? My voice sounded steadier than I felt. At the cafe, Allie seemed almost irritatingly chipper, as if we were discussing weekend brunch plans rather than a potential relationship extinction event. I've been thinking about it more, she said, stirring her latte. He sent me the itinerary. We'd visit Athens, Santorini, and Mykonos. 10 days total. You're actually considering this, I said, the statement landing between us like a heavy stone. Well, yes. She looked surprised at my tone. Max, I understand it's a bit unconventional, but it's just a trip. And I already told him nothing's going to happen between us. And you believe he's spending thousands of dollars just to apologize? With no expectations? Her eyes flickered away from mine. Okay, I'll admit, he probably has some hope that we might reconnect. But that doesn't mean anything will happen. So you're knowingly going into a situation where your ex is trying to win you back, in one of the most romantic settings imaginable, and I'm supposed to be fine with that because… What? You want a free vacation? Her cheeks flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and defensiveness. You're making it sound terrible. I thought you trusted me. This isn't about trusting you, Allie. It's about respecting our relationship. How would you feel if I was planning a getaway with my ex? The question hung in the air between us. For a moment, I saw understanding flash across her face, quickly replaced by stubborn determination. That's different, she insisted, though she didn't elaborate on how. As we stared at each other across the table, I realized with a sinking feeling that we weren't just discussing a vacation. We were revealing a fundamental disconnect in how we viewed commitment, boundaries, and respect, a chasm I wasn't sure we could bridge, no matter how many cups of coffee we shared. The coffee shop conversation left me with more questions than answers, a hollow feeling expanding in my chest as I walked home alone. If Allie couldn't see why this situation was problematic, was I overreacting? The doubt crept in like a fog, clouding my judgment and making me second-guess my own perfectly reasonable boundaries. I needed outside perspective before this uncertainty consumed me entirely. My first call was to my best friend, Derek, who had known me since college and had seen me through previous relationship disasters. She wants to what? He practically shouted through the phone. And she seriously doesn't see the problem? His indignation was validating but didn't offer solutions. My sister Kate, on the other hand, played devil's advocate. It's a bit weird, sure, but if they have separate rooms and she's been transparent about it, maybe you're being too controlling. Her words stung, hitting the exact nerve that had been keeping me up at night. The mixed reactions from my inner circle drove me to seek wider opinions. I found myself down an internet rabbit hole of relationship forums and advice columns, searching for similar situations. The responses varied wildly. Some called it an obvious attempt by the ex to reignite the relationship. Others suggested I was insecure and should trust my girlfriend more. One comment stuck with me. It's not about whether anything will happen, it's about why she would even consider putting herself in that position if she values your relationship. Armed with these different perspectives, I invited Allie over for dinner, determined to have a deeper conversation about our relationship boundaries. I cooked her favorite pasta, poured wine, and created the space for an honest discussion. I've been thinking a lot about this Greece situation. I began carefully. It's not that I don't trust you. It's that I feel this crosses a line for me in terms of what's respectful in a relationship. I explained how I'd feel if the roles were reversed. How I would never accept an expensive trip from an ex out of respect for her, regardless of how appealing the destination was. I talked about boundaries, about the subtle message it sends when you allow an ex who wants you back to invest thousands in your time and attention. Her response left me cold. I think you're making too big a deal out of this, she said, twirling pasta around her fork without meeting my eyes. It's just a trip. We dated for 9 months, not 9 years. It's not like we're married. But we're building towards something serious, aren't we? I asked, my voice quieter now. At least, I thought we were. She shrugged, a gesture so casual it felt like a slap. Of course we are. But that doesn't mean I can't have this experience. When will I ever get another chance to see Greece for free? The way she framed it as if this were simply about geography and finance rather than relationship ethics revealed a disconnect I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just about the trip anymore. It was about fundamentally different views of commitment and respect. The realization settled over me like a weight. We might be looking at the same situation, but we were seeing entirely different pictures. Later that night, alone again in my apartment, I pulled out a notebook and made 2 columns: stay and leave. Under stay, I wrote, 9 months of mostly good times. Potential for growth. Genuine feelings. Under leave, a single line stood out starkly: willing to prioritize a free vacation with an ex over my feelings. The imbalance of that page told me everything I needed to know, but I wasn't quite ready to accept it yet. As I stared at those words, my phone buzzed with a text from Allie. Just check the weather in Santorini for next month. It's going to be perfect. No acknowledgement of our conversation, no recognition of my concerns. Just excitement about a trip that was driving a wedge between us with every passing day. That thoughtless text about Santorini's weather was the catalyst that transformed my uncertainty into clarity. The casual way she dismissed my feelings as if they were inconvenient clouds on her sunny Greek horizon sparked something resolute within me. By morning, I had a new approach. If she wanted a vacation so badly, perhaps we could compromise with an alternative that didn't involve her ex-boyfriend's ulterior motives. I called Allie and suggested meeting at the park where we'd had our first date. The symmetry felt important somehow, bringing us back to our beginning as we faced what might be our end. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the grass as we sat on a bench overlooking the small lake where we'd once fed ducks and shared our first kiss. I've been thinking, I began, my voice steadier than I expected, about this whole Greece situation. I understand you want to travel, and I don't want to be the reason you miss out on experiences. Her face brightened momentarily, misinterpreting my opening as acceptance. I continued before she could speak. So I looked into some options, and I think we could plan our own trip. Maybe not Greece right now, but somewhere closer and within our budget. What about a long weekend in Quebec City? Or even a week in Puerto Rico if we find a good deal? The light in her eyes dimmed as she realized I wasn't conceding. That's sweet, Max, but it's not the same thing. Ryan's offering a completely free luxury vacation. We'd be staying in 5-star hotels in Santorini, the places we could afford. She trailed off, her implication clear. My alternative was a downgrade she wasn't interested in. So it's not about the experience of traveling or spending time somewhere beautiful, I said slowly. It's specifically about the luxury you can get from him that you can't get from me. That's not fair, she protested, but her words lacked conviction. It's just pragmatic. Why should I turn down something amazing just because it comes from Ryan? Because it doesn't just come from Ryan, I replied, frustration finally bleeding into my voice. It comes with strings attached, expectations, history. And because it clearly makes me uncomfortable, which should matter to you if our relationship matters. So I'm supposed to prioritize your insecurity over an incredible opportunity? The edge in her voice cut through the pleasant park atmosphere. This isn't about insecurity, Allie. It's about respect and appropriate boundaries. Would you be comfortable if I spent 10 days in a romantic setting with my ex who was explicitly trying to win me back? She hesitated, then deflected. That's completely hypothetical. Your ex isn't offering you a trip. But if she did, I pressed. Would you be okay with it? The silence that followed spoke volumes. Finally, she sighed. I don't know, Max. Maybe I would be. I'd like to think I'd trust you enough. This isn't just about trust, I said, the words coming faster now as everything I'd been restraining broke free. It's about the fact that you're willing to put our relationship at risk for a vacation. That you'd rather spend time with your ex in Greece than figure out a trip we could take together. That when I expressed discomfort with something this inappropriate, you dismiss it as insecurity rather than considering that maybe, just maybe, what you're considering is actually disrespectful to our relationship. Her cheeks flushed with anger or embarrassment, possibly both. You're making this into something bigger than it is. Or maybe you're minimizing something significant because you want what he's offering more than you want to honor what we have. The words hung between us, unavoidable and true. Maybe we should take a break, I suggested. The irony not lost on me suggesting a break to prevent her from taking a trip with her ex. The silence that descended after my declaration felt absolute, as if the entire park had paused to witness our unraveling. Allie's expression shifted through a rapid sequence of emotion: shock, anger, disbelief, and finally, a calculating assessment that made my heart sink. I could almost see her weighing her options. The relationship with me versus the luxury vacation with Ryan. The fact that this was even a comparison told me everything I needed to know. "You can't be serious," she finally said, her voice unnaturally calm. "You're willing to throw away 9 months over a trip that hasn't even happened yet?" "I'm not throwing away anything," I replied, maintaining a steadiness I didn't entirely feel. "I'm acknowledging that we have different boundaries and values. You're willing to put yourself in a compromising position with an ex who wants you back, all for a free vacation. That tells me everything about your priorities." She stood abruptly, hands clenched at her sides. "Fine. If that's how you want to frame it to make yourself feel better, go ahead. But we both know this is about your insecurity and control issues." The accusation stung, precisely because I'd spent so much time ensuring it wasn't true. I'd examined my motivations, sought outside perspectives, and offered compromises. This wasn't about control, it was about self-respect. "I'm going to Greece," she continued, lifting her chin in defiance. "With or without your approval. If you can't handle that, then I guess we're done." There it was, the ultimatum I'd been careful not to give, delivered instead by her. "Then I guess we are," I said, the finality of it both devastating and oddly relieving. She waited a beat, perhaps expecting me to backtrack or beg her to reconsider. When I remained silent, something shifted in her expression. For the first time, I saw genuine surprise, maybe even regret. Had she not believed I would actually stand my ground? Had she assumed I was bluffing? "Max," she began again, her tone softer now. "This is silly. We don't need to break up over this. Can't we just agree to disagree? I'll go on the trip, have a nice time, and come back to you. Nothing will happen with Ryan, I promise." The sudden pivot to reconciliation felt almost as disrespectful as the original issue. "So you're still planning to go?" I clarified. "But you want me to wait for you while you enjoy a romantic getaway with your ex?" She sighed with exasperation. "When you put it like that, you make it sound terrible." "It is terrible, Allie. From my perspective, it's terrible, and the fact that you can't see that is why we're breaking up." The reality of our situation finally seemed to register. Her eyes welled with tears, whether from genuine sadness or frustration at not getting her way. I couldn't tell anymore. "You can't just end things like this," she insisted. "I'm not ending things," I corrected her gently. "We're ending things, together, by wanting incompatible things and being unwilling to compromise. You want the freedom to take a trip with your ex, despite knowing it hurts me. I want a relationship where both partners respect certain boundaries. These things cannot coexist." She gathered her purse and stood, tears now streaming freely. "You'll regret this," she said, more pleading than threatening. "When I come back from Greece and you realize nothing happened, you'll feel foolish for throwing us away." I shook my head. "Even if nothing physical happens in Greece, something has already happened here. You've shown me where I rank in your priorities, and it's below a free vacation with someone who treated you badly. That's knowledge I can't unknow." As she walked away, shoulders hunched and steps quick, I remained on the bench, watching the sun begin its descent behind the trees. 9 months ended not with a dramatic betrayal, but with a simple, revealing choice: to prioritize a trip with her ex, mine to prioritize my self-respect. The park continued its everyday rhythm around me, children laughing, dogs barking, couples strolling hand in hand, oblivious to the relationship that had just dissolved on a bench by the water. That evening, alone in my apartment, I received a flurry of texts from Allie, alternating between anger and bargaining. I responded only once. "I hope you enjoy Greece. I genuinely wish you well." Then I muted the conversation and opened a beer, allowing myself to feel the full weight of an ending that was painful but necessary. Some lessons in life come at a high emotional cost. This one had cost me 9 months and a woman I thought I might love. But as I sat there watching the night settle over the city, I recognized that the alternative, compromising my boundaries to keep someone who didn't fully respect them, would have cost me something far more valuable: my self-worth. 3 months after that decisive afternoon in the park, the sting of the breakup had faded into something more nuanced, a bittersweet acknowledgement that sometimes the right decisions are the most painful ones. I had thrown myself into work, reconnected with friends I'd neglected, and even started rock climbing, something I'd always wanted to try but never made time for. Through our overlapping social circles, information occasionally reached me like dispatches from a distant shore. Allie had gone to Greece with Ryan. They had stayed in those 5-star hotels with their separate rooms for the first 2 nights, at least. By the 3rd night, according to a mutual friend who followed her social media, the pretense had evaporated, replaced by sun-drenched couples' selfies and romantic dinner captions. They were officially back together before they even returned to the States. The news hadn't surprised me, but my reaction to it did. Instead of jealousy or regret, I felt a profound sense of validation. My instincts had been correct. Ryan's apology trip had been exactly what I'd suspected, a calculated attempt to win her back. And Allie, despite her protestations and promises, had known it all along. The free vacation had been worth more than her integrity or our relationship. Last week, Derek mentioned running into them at a restaurant. She didn't look happy, he reported, almost apologetically. Kept checking her phone whenever he went to the bathroom. Word is he's back to his old controlling ways. I nodded but didn't feel the satisfaction some might expect. There's no victory in someone else's poor choices, only lessons for your own future. The experience with Allie had taught me something invaluable. Boundaries aren't negotiable, and someone who truly respects you will understand that without explanation. As I look toward future relationships, I carry this wisdom with me. I won't compromise on the fundamentals of respect and trust, no matter how attractively packaged the temptation. And perhaps most importantly, I've learned that being alone is far preferable to being with someone who makes you question your own reasonable standards. Some prices are too high, even for a free vacation in paradise. Sometimes the most valuable journeys are the ones we refuse to take. In standing my ground, I didn't lose a girlfriend. I found my self-respect. We all deserve someone who values our boundaries more than free tickets to paradise. If this resonated with you, hit like, share your own relationship boundary stories in the comments, and subscribe for more real-life wisdom worth more than any vacation.